Good evening, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to BSB Leadership Podcast, episode number 3. John C. Maxwell said that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And in today's world, that influence is perhaps most uh, remarkably and increasingly being influenced not or being impacted not by just authority, but by trust, responsiveness, and human connection. And that's what the conversation today is going to be all about. For today's episode, which is very special to me, and very special because I met this guest in APSS Singapore just recently, and I was greatly impacted by him. Not only by his presence, not only by his stagecraft, not only by the exceptional slides that he had, but much more than that with his human connections, because I got a lot of time to talk to him and got to know a lot about him. I'll just tell you who that guest is, but what he does is that he is one of the most in demand customer experience speakers and consultants in the world today. A certified speaking professional and a global speaking fellow, he has shared his insights with audiences across North America and nearly 30 countries around the world, helping organizations build better understanding and changing customer expectations and become, in his words, ridiculously easy to do business with. He's the author of 7 books, including Why Customers Leave, It's Not Who You Know, but It's Who Knows You, and his latest book, which I just talked about, Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With. And I think that is such a fact because I heard him talk all about it, and that's what he himself is. So today's guest is no one other than the great David Avrin. Oh my God, sorry.
We're good. Good morning. Good evening. Evening for you, early morning for me in Denver, Colorado. But I'm thrilled to have this conversation. It's great to pick up on the conversation that we began less than 2 weeks ago in Singapore. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and share with your guests as well.
Let me just still come back to the stage. Okay. So, just 1 second. Give me a second to fix this technology
No, you're
issue.
fine. Listen, for everybody who's watching live, there we go. That's,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the
Okay.
nature of these. See, this is live, and that's great.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So, let's start with something that when you say it's ridiculously easy to work with, I want to know a little more about this because this is your latest best-selling book and I have already ordered a copy. And I wish to give a copy of his book to the most active participant today. So over to you, David.
For me, the whole idea of being ridiculously easy to do business with, it came from both the professional work that I've been doing for nearly 3 decades, but also from a personal perspective. Sometimes even as a consultant or a speaker, you have to sort of take your own human approach and take a step back and say, where do you see what's frustrating you? What are the conversations that you're having, that I'm having with leaders and organizations across the world? But my job is to sort of represent the customers perspective. Uh, for example, I was speaking at a conference in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia just a couple of weeks ago, right before Singapore, and it was a digital transformation summit for Malaysia. I was at the end of the day. I was the closing keynote speaker, but I sat through the entire day and some really remarkable presentations from very, very, very smart people who were responsible for governmental digital transformation, organizational, consumer brands, B2B, and others as well. And all day long, they kept talking about some of these amazing technologies and AI and the organizational and operational efficiencies that were going to be the result of a lot of these efforts. But not one person talked about how it made life easier for their customers or clients. And in some cases, it was very clear that to make life easier for their team, they were transferring the work to their customers and convincing themselves that all customers love to do it themselves. And the reality is what we want is choices. We want choices. In business, we're serving 4 or 5 generations right now. So we've got the teens in the early 20s, and we have all the way up to the octogenarians. And everybody, I'm talking customers and clients, we all want to do business differently. Some of us want to just, my kids, of course, in their 20s, they want to do everything on their mobile device and text. But older people, they just want somebody to talk to. And so it's an interesting time in business. It's a difficult time to lead because not only are we trying to be profitable, that's a measure of predictability in our processes and our cash flow and our profits, but we're serving so many different generations and wants and needs of our customers that we have to balance all of that. So that's what the latest book sort of came out of that, was this consensus that I was hearing from the frustration, which is, why is this so difficult? We've got great products and services. Why is this so difficult? And so it's a continuation of a great journey for me.
Yeah, that's very right. It's really, really very relevant to today's world. And David, what are the modern customers? What are they looking for or expecting from their leaders, from their organizations, and whatever stakeholders they have?
Are we talking customers? Or are we talking internal? Because I'm happy to talk about both.
I would like you to go first to external and then internal.
Okay, for external, what we want, and I'm going to say we as if we're, because everybody listening, everybody watching this, we're all customers also. We're customers and clients of some other business, even if we're running our own business. And what we generally want, and I know this sounds very simple, we want what we want when we want it. And it doesn't mean we're demanding, but if I'm hungry and I drive through a restaurant, I just want a hot meal and I want it fairly quickly and not have to wait too long and make it easy to pay. That's what we want. And sometimes that clashes with, I know organizations want to be able to deliver that, but sometimes the policies and procedures that they put in place make things difficult. I talk to organizations all the time and leaders, and especially sales teams and sales leaders, and they will always say, I'll ask them, what's your competitive advantage? And they say, it's the relationship. They say, we want a relationship. And I say, would you be surprised to learn that your customers never say that? Your customers don't want a relationship. They're happy with a relationship, but they're not coming to you for a relationship. They're coming to you to solve a problem, to meet a need, to buy a building materials or get a meal. They're not coming to you for a relationship. Now, they will stay for a relationship, especially in professional service type organizations like financial services. And right, those relationships are really important. But we come to you for a need. And so there's a disconnect because the sales teams and the other leaders, they say it's all about the relationship. And I say, no. Retention is about the relationship, but the customer acquisition is about how well can you meet their needs and can you do it better than your competitors? And I think there's a gap in recognition because we get so used to saying those things internally within organizations, leaders talking to their teams and about the importance of the relationship. And all of that's true, but customers never say that, right? They're looking for something different. And if we're all good, and today everybody's good, if you weren't good, you would be outed pretty quickly. Yelp or TripAdvisor. everybody's good. So where's our real opportunity for differentiation? Well, 30 years ago, the differentiation was better marketing and slogans and jingles and commercials. Today, we don't trust necessarily what companies say about themselves. We trust what other people say about them. And the criteria, and this has been a big shift, is the experience. And I look at the experience different than a lot of my colleagues. There's a lot of people talking about how do we create a wow experience. I don't think every industry lends themselves to a wow experience. Sometimes you're selling an electronic part that goes into a bigger electronic part that goes into a boat, right? The
Yeah.
wow is how responsive you are. How easy was the process to find what they needed and order or customize and buy and pay. Help your customers get what they want quickly, and you'll be surprised at how loyal they become.
That is powerful. I think we started the conversation with something. In your one answer, there are so many things I found. And particularly when you're talking about the distinction between customer acquisition and customer satisfaction or customer delight, they're two different things. And I also love this part that it is not a wow factor. Yes, if you buy something small and put it in another, I mean, there's no wow there. It goes as one of the many things in the jigsaw puzzle. So very, very interesting. In fact, if I just take my mind to the army, I find that the trust there is not built during the battle. It is revealed during the battle, but it is built much earlier.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's a lot of things that go into it. So when you're talking about relationship also, yes, in building that trust, relationship is there in the beginning. But ultimately, I think I really go by what you say, that it is the customer experience, that it is not only that the meal was hot, it is also how it was served, how quickly what is served, was it easy to pay for, etc., etc. So it is a package, and I really, really love that.
Yeah,
And now,
I was going to say real quickly, part of it's sort of an expansion of what we have traditionally thought about. Well, let's go back to customer service, right? Because that's sort of the root of all of this, is how well they're being served. And I recognize all of that, but we've been talking about that for 50 years. And what's different is the experience is different because it's judged by your customers or your clients, not just was somebody friendly, was the food hot, but how simple was that? When I talk to organizational leaders, and I will ask them, why do you think customers come to you? What do you think your differentiator is? And they all say the same thing. They start with first and foremost, it's our quality, commitment, our caring people, and I say all of that is very important. Here's what the research shows is that your customers assume quality. I mean, if you weren't good, you wouldn't be in business, but they're prioritizing speed of answers, speed of issue resolution, speed of information, speed of transaction, right? Options, choices. Don't just restrict that, even restrict how we do business or how we pay. Simplicity, a process. Can you do it with one click? And then finally, convenience. And convenient is opposite of inconvenient, right? So while we talk about so many leaders, quality and commitment and caring, trust, and it's about the people, the customers are assuming that, and they're looking for who can get them what they want quicker. That simplicity of process. So I even make the distinction when I talk on stage, when I'm keynoting a conference or when I'm consulting, that I don't really talk about customer service. It's very, very important, but I think they understand that. But I said, let me give you a different lens, because how we do business today is very different than even 10 years ago. And so our expectations as customers on companies is very different. I ask leaders all the time, I ask audiences, I said, how many people notice that their customers or clients are getting more impatient and more demanding than ever? And everybody's like, welcome to my world. And they said, well, here's why. Because we have this whole new generation, especially post-pandemic, we have a whole new generation of conveniences. I live just south of Denver, Colorado. You and I are on the opposite sides of the planet right now, 11 and a half hours apart. But we have multiple Amazon warehouses fairly close to where I live. 80% of what we order online, we get the same day. The same day is ridiculous. And it's wonderful as a customer, right? It is a great time to be a customer. And it's a really hard time to be in business or be a leader in business right now.
That's very revealing. And by the way, my father died without being able to understand right till the end. How can you get things so fast? I saw you ordering this particular pen drive or something in the morning, and in the evening it has arrived. So we
Yeah.
have a new thing in India called Blinkit, and you can get it really in. There's normally some things you can get in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we grew up in a time, at least where I am in America, if you wanted to send flowers to somebody, if we had a friend in hospital or somebody who was sick, you had to order by 10 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to guarantee the same day, because they would load up the car and be out. You can order at 9 o'clock at night and still have it at 9:30. Anything.
Yeah.
Anything. And it's changed the landscape. Once again, it's a wonderful time to be a customer, because almost anything that we can afford, we can have delivered to us. And so, but it's a challenging time for retail. I'm speaking in a couple of weeks for a conference called the Customer Relationship Management Conference in America, and every major retailer you can imagine is there in that room. And everybody's trying to solve this problem of recognizing that what used to make us great, right, our great products and services, now is table stakes. It is common. And how people buy, how people access information and buy with one click and tap their card. My kids don't ever have cash or know how to write a check. It's just it's not even tapping a credit card anymore. It's tapping their phone, right? And so the landscape is changing. So it's really crucial for business and leaders to not just do their job, but to anticipate what's next, not just to meet their quotas, but recognize how their customers have changed. And by the same token, and we had talked about this earlier, is from an internal perspective to recognize that the employee experience, what it's like to work there, is crucial, because I think it's so tied to the employee experience is tied to the customer experience. Not just because if people are happy, they're going to do better or serve their customers better. That may be true to an extent, but what happens internally affects everything. Like when I talk to organizations and talk to about their employees and talking to their leaders, I always look at it this way: who's waiting for something? Who's got an order waiting? Who's got a requisition that's waiting for somebody's signature? Who on the other side is waiting for them to get that done so they can get something else done? I think of it like a general contractor. You're building a home. You can't put in the floors or you can't put the cabinets in until you have the floors in, and you're waiting on this person. And you have to be everybody's got to do their job. And you got to work like a concert and not so siloed. Anyway, I don't want to go too deep in that. All my answers are way too long, but
no, that's perfectly all right.
But I'm about all this, yeah.
See, just a few years back, not too long ago, we used to say customer service is no longer customer satisfaction is no longer anything great. That has become a norm. Now customer delight is. But today, after listening to, I think even customer delight is becoming faded away, and there's something more. And I think it's about efficiency or the overall experience, which is even beyond delight. I think it's probably surprise that how can you surprise your customer more than or beyond what he expected? Probably.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the expectation, once again, when I said not every business is sexy, not every business has wow moments, is the delight can come from just a quick response. Like, thank you so much for getting back to me quickly. And we're not doing it so that they're grateful. We do it because it helps them be better, right? It's how many ways can we really enhance their life and not just provide the products and services. And this isn't about being touchy-feely. It's about if you help them get what they want quickly, and the other person who's waiting on them gets what they want quickly, they're more likely to come back to you, right? Because I have a slightly different version of the assertion when say it's no longer simply about customer satisfaction, it's about customer delight. And I look at it a little bit different. And we have some new research. We did a big research report very recently, and it was called the frequency of customer friction. And we measured not just satisfaction, but what are the behaviors that come from points of friction and frustration. And one of the things that came out of that was that the greatest predictor of customer loyalty isn't satisfaction. It's actually effort. It's friction. It's not just was somebody satisfied, is how hard was it to get it done? So you look at something like Net Promoter Score, right? And they're asking the question is did they like you enough to recommend you to others? And my business kind of looks at it through a different lens, which is, did you make it easy enough for them to want to come back? Or conversely, did you have great products and services, but they were so frustrated that they're not coming back? Because my business is all about helping to identify and eliminate points of friction. What are those things that frustrate people, and can we address them? In most cases, we can. And so what does that look like? What's that point where people are just thinking like, I've had enough of this? You know, one of the things that we found, because I sort of assumed that everybody hates chatbots and everybody hates digital assistants, and they really don't. A lot of people do. I don't really like them, but I know how important they are, and it's certainly inevitable. But what the research found was it's not that people hate digital options, is they hate being trapped in them, right? It's that just give me an option for a real person. There's a lot of people who are just fine with it, do it themselves. It's an easy question they can answer. But when you're saying agent, real person, when you're yelling into your phone, agent, real person, I think you said no. It's like, no, and it doesn't understand you. And then you find yourself back again and you're so frustrated because you can't get out of that loop. Now let's back up a second. For everybody listening or watching, this part's really important. This is your customer. This is your client. We know how much it costs, how much time and effort and expense to earn a customer, to earn a client, to get them to your website for the first time or get them on the phone. And then we frustrate them right when we have them right there. There's the opportunity, as you said, to delight them. But my gosh, but if you go to these conferences, they talk like they've created a cure for cancer that tastes like chocolate with all this new digital assistance and AI, and one chatbot can replace 700 customer service workers, and the bean counters love it, and the operations people love it, and your customers hate it, or at least they hate being forced.
At least I hate it.
They hate being forced to use it. And so my whole thing, even with, I'm certainly recognize the inevitability of some of this. Some of the agentic AI and stuff is getting very good. It's not quite there, but it will be probably by the time somebody watches the recording of this in 3 months, it'll be better. But the question is, are we giving people options? Because we know the 22-year-old who lives in a big city has different needs and wants and preferences than a 78-year-old who lives in a rural area. Now, they both can, their money spends the same, but how they want to engage with you is different. And it doesn't mean we have to be all things to all people, but we have to be better than we are.
Absolutely. Actually, I think it's so enlightening because in the last 3-4 minutes, you have given us gold. I mean, there's so much which I had not thought about. But David, tell me, if we go further, what are those what are those few things which most customers are looking for in their business from their businesses, other than what you've just said? You've talked about the experience, you talked about the efficiency and all. Is there something that the mistakes that we are making as business owners?
Well, there's a couple of categories, and it's not really what most people think about, because we can talk, even in my book, Ridiculously Easy, I talk about 24 different specific points of frustration that people have, whether it's not being able to talk to a real person or difficulty getting the price. You know, there's people, they're playing games, and it really comes down to two things. And it kind of works both ways. It's what the customers want to make sure, and as organizational leaders, we need to ensure as well, is we don't want them to wonder, and we don't want them to worry. If they wonder if they're going to be able to get it on time, if they worry that they're going to make a bad decision, then it makes them reluctant to make the purchase in the meantime. There's the old line that we all grew up with: recognize that nature abhors a vacuum, right? If that space, that emptiness in a relationship, that emptiness in conversation, we so often will fill that gap with negative scenarios, whether or not they really occur. And so, when I talk to leaders, and they'll say, our customers are so impatient. Like, I'll get this long voicemail message or email that says, "You worked so hard to get my business, and now I can't even get you. Now I can't get you on the phone. Now I can't get a response." But it's like, I was at lunch. Like, just breathe for a second here, right? But when they wonder, when they worry, probably one of the biggest mistakes, and this part still just astonishes me, is, and I'll ask audiences this: you ever go to a website and you have a simple question, and there's no phone number, like there's nowhere to call, like all they have is a contact form. And I saw somebody had on a presentation, I'm still trying to find the statistic, but he said that 86% of people will never fill out a contact form. I won't. I don't, because I don't know who's going to get it. I don't know when they're going to respond. And I just call somebody else and get a response right away. And so impatience is huge, just because we don't have to wait. But internally, think about their decision-making process, right? All these people calling, and most of them can be, let's just let Sanjay get all the messages. We'll just do a contact form. It'll all go to him, and then he'll respond. Well, that's not how your customers want to do business, right? Because if we fill out that form, we need to have a question. We're wondering, are they going to respond? We're worrying that it's going to take 2 days to get a response. So we just don't do it. We just go somewhere else. And we go somewhere else, Sushil, because we can. Because we have choices. And so, once again, from the customer's perspective, if they're going to wonder or worry, it's better off not even to proceed. That's why social proof is so important. That's why 5-star ratings and reviews are so important, because it's easy for us to go online, see what the consensus of the marketplace says. Yeah, that looks like a safe choice, and we engage. Even when you go to Amazon, if you'll notice that when you go to look at a product, if you scroll down the page, there's rows and rows of other similar products, right? And they'll have 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. Nobody's buying anything with 3 stars. They're just not. Why? Because right next to it is something with 4 stars or 5 stars. It becomes a safer choice. We don't wonder and we don't worry. And so the marketplace weeds out the lesser players, but so much what we're looking for, customers are looking for, is just confidence, just certainty.
Yeah, so right. Really, that's gold. And don't you think that the gap between the expectations of the customer and the capability or the efficiency of the business is really widening?
In some cases, but but not necessarily for the reasons that people think. I was on another podcast, and somebody asked me. They said, "Listen, if we've been talking about this, providing great service or whatever for 50 years, how is it possibly getting worse?" Like, it's not that we don't know. I said, "Well, it is getting worse. It's getting worse for 2 reasons. One is just because it's changing, and companies are struggling to keep up, right? And so what worked for 50 years doesn't necessarily work even for 5 years anymore, just because how we connect and share and pay and communicate and all of that is changing. But the other reason why it's getting worse is a completely different reason. And that reason is that we, in business, there's so much that we can't control. We can't control pandemics or tariffs or wars or competitors or new technology. And we're scrambling to keep up, and new competitors and new disruption. So what a lot of business leaders do is they try to control what they can. And so we really orchestrate that customer journey. We write detailed scripts for our customer service agents, right? Yes, I understand, Mr. Avrin, how frustrating that must be. And I'm like, no, wait, so I've got an issue. Don't read the script. Here, just listen to me for a second. Here's what I'm dealing with. Yes, Mr. Avrin, I understand how frustrating. I'm like, don't read the script. So we get leaders and organizations trying so hard to orchestrate. Here's exactly how the customer is going to do business with us. Here's how they're going to learn about us and discover and reach out and buy and customize and deliver. And if we can control that, then we can have a measure of predictability, right? In our processes and our purchases and cash flow. And we can budget for that. We can hire for that. We can plan for that. And the problem is your customers haven't read your employee manual. And so part of why it's getting worse and that gap, as you said, is widening is because companies are trying so hard to orchestrate and control how their customers will do business. At the same time, their customers want more choices and more options and don't want to do things the way you want to do it. And there's that disconnect, right? You go to the grocery store and I want the option of having somebody to help me check out my groceries. I have a basket full of groceries. It's going to take me 45 minutes. It's going to take a trained person 10. But they want you to go to self-checkout because it saves them money. Well, now I have a choice and I just take my business somewhere else because they didn't serve me. So the gap is widening, but I think largely it's those two reasons. One is that the change is difficult, and two is they're trying to control too much at the same time when they should be more accommodating. And it's scary. It's scary for a leader to have everything be different all the time because you can't plan for that.
Very good. I think that's brilliant. Now, today, no conversation can really go further without talking about AI. And in this world of AI, where every business is now using AI to a large extent, and some of them I feel are doing it very, very artificially, using artificial intelligence artificially.
Yeah.
What is the role of human connection, and how do we dovetail that into the AI business?
Boy, there's a lot of people talking about this right now, probably uh, more educated than I am. All I can tell you is here's what we sort of see on the ground is that people want choices. And if by implementing new technology and adopting new methodologies, at the same time, we're taking things away from people because we want to push them that direction, people are going to respond. Now, there will be a time when everybody will be technology natives to a certain extent. We're very much in a transition time right now. It's like the same thing. Here's the analogy I use is that, yeah, the future is probably autonomous electric vehicles, but there will be a transition time. It's not like all of a sudden every gas car is going to be eliminated from the road. There'll be a 40-year period where one will slowly overtake the other. But we don't automatically just junk all of our cars and everything's going to be electric. It's the same thing with AI. And so we're in a transition period. And as much as organizations, they see this cost savings, this efficiency, the promise of AI, and it's there. It's world changing. But there is a transition time. And that transition time is there's a generation of people who want to still work with a human. And so I encourage companies to deploy smart the AI, but I remind them that deploying AI or chatbots or digital assistants, they're not there so you don't have to talk to your customers, right? It's there so we can be smarter in how we do it, that we can offload simple issues so we have time to talk to the customers who need it. And so it's, as I said, I was in Kuala Lumpur and that conference, they were just pulling their arm out of their socket as they were patting themselves on the back so much about this amazing new technology and the transition. And nobody talked about how it was going to make life easier for their customers. And so that I think is my answer. It's just to recognize that we're going to be in transition period, not for 20, 30 years, but probably at least for the next 5 to 10. And so when you create new methodologies, don't take away what people like. There's a whole chapter in my book. It's like, just don't take away from your customers what you know they like and prefer. And of course, we have to be smart leaders in business. We've got to balance every opportunity with the cost structure. And so I think people are smart. And but my job is to sort of be that messenger says, don't forget about this part.
Very good. I think that's a very good distinction, and I think it's very powerful. Now, in today's fast changing world, many organizations are still operating with yesterday's assumptions about customers, which you also mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But in your view, what is the biggest mindset shift that the leaders and businesses need to make it more relevant?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift is from the what to the how. And here's what I mean. And I'm not talking about technology. For I don't know, 1,000 years, it's always what do people want to buy and can we deliver that? Right? What are the new tastes? And so we studied demographics and psychographics and what is not just what's the next clothing item for the season, but how does that differentiate a 22-year-old Asian woman might want something different than her counterpart in Europe. And that's demographic and psychographic. That's the what. The big shift is now we have to be very cognizant of the how. And the how is how they want to engage, right? Do they want to buy online? Do they want to buy in person? I remember the early days of the internet, they said it's going to be the death of retail shopping because you can buy everything online. And then we learned very quickly that people need to try the clothes on, right? You need to be able to see, does it fit? And so today it's taken to a whole different level. Now it's how do we communicate? Do we give people choices? Is it text? Is it email, phone, video? All of those choices. Even for payment, I get asked by clients all the time. And granted, I have a different business model than most, but they say, do you take PayPal or Square or Zelle or Cash App or Venmo? And my answer is yes, because they're trying to pay me. My kids who are no longer kids in their 20s and 30s, there's different apps for payments, the electronic payments. I remember when electronic payments started, people were so reluctant to put their credit card into their computer. It's like, that's very dangerous. Now we just tap on everything. So that's the big shift. It's not just what are people likely to buy and how do we anticipate that and how do we deliver and create and manufacture quality products and services, but how our customers want to engage with us or pay or complain. Are we making it ridiculously easy? And so that's the monumental shift, is that part for leaders is so important to be really in touch with what has changed and where's the market going. And it's very different for legacy brands, long-term. I mean, these are people like, we've been in business for 100 years. We know how to do this. We have it down. It's like, yeah, but your customers are very different. And so that how we engage, not just are we effective and efficient and providing quality, but are we also easy to do business with, or even better, are we ridiculously easy?
Wow, wow, that's so good. So while as we continue with our conversation, which is so enlightening and so invigorating, I would like to request the
I mean, he's frozen for a moment. I think I'm still going. If you're listening or watching, hang on with us. It's always my fear is that when I freeze, that I've got a funny look on my face. If you're watching or listening, hang on for just a second. We're going to try and reestablish Sushil's connection. If he knows that he is frozen right now. There we go. I hear you
I
again.
think there was some network issue happened.
You're fine.
Okay.
I had a chance to talk to our viewers and listeners and ask them to hang on while you reestablish your connection.
Oh, okay. Then that was at my end, I think. Oh,
Yeah,
so I'm happy that
I think it was on your end, but people are pretty forgiving of that.
And the worst thing is you can do nothing about it.
No, it's funny when I do, and I know we're live on this too, but on my podcast, because you're great to do it live. I record mine as most people do, but even when something, we're talking about something else and they go, oh, we'll edit that out later. And I say, don't edit anything. That's it. Once again, but that's another thing. We're sort of talking about what's different today. Look at where we are right now, and I'm not sure where people are watching or listening. We are on the other side of the planet, literally the other side of the planet. I'm in Denver, Colorado. You're in India. For my parents' generation, my parents have passed away. This is magic. This is magic, right?
Absolutely.
For you and I, it's Wednesday, right? This whole idea, like my father was in the space program. He was an actual rocket scientist. He designed uh, experiments and things that went up on Mars and on Jupiter. And if he were alive today, there's what is that now on Mars? There's like a little drone helicopter, and you can hear the wind, and you see it. This amazing clear picture. And I was watching that a couple of weeks ago on TV, and I had tears in my eyes because I thought, if my father could see this, that this
Mm.
is amazing. But I think, and I'm not just waxing philosophical, but I think there is a recognition and lessons for leaders as well, is to recognize that it's not that what used to work no longer does. It's that it's just changed. And there's more that leaders need to know and need to be concerned with and help their people manage and anticipate. It's different than it ever was. I think it's very exciting. I've been on in conversations, and they'll say, why do businesses just not get it? And I'm like, of course they get it. These are I'm a big fan of business. I think business leaders are incredibly smart. It's just hard. And so that's why podcasts like this and the work that I do in speaking or consulting, and so many of our colleagues, we have a charge to help navigate these changes, because they're going to keep coming. And do it wrong and you become irrelevant. And be strategic and intentional, and we have a really good opportunity to future proof our business and future proof our engagement, and not just say, what's the future going to hold in 20 years? No, what's the future going to hold in 2 years? And what do we need to be doing now to not just to be ready for it, but to be relevant, right? There's so many great legacy brands who are very good. We just don't do business that way anymore, right? We're not selling video cassette cartridges anymore, or Kodak film, right? Because
Yeah.
because the world changed and they didn't. So, right. Sometimes we can lament the loss of very familiar brands or brands that we knew when we were young, but the only reason they're going out of business is because they're replaced by something that's better, objectively, right? Or subjectively, um, because they're faster, they're more convenient, they're more tied into how we do business today. We're not, nobody's struggling to find toys anymore because some toy company went out of business. No, it's just replaced by somebody else who can do it better and faster. And it's sad for them, but I don't think there's a business on the planet that couldn't disappear from the earth today, and the marketplace would be fine, because it would just absorb it and somebody else would take that over. We just had Spirit Airlines in America go bankrupt and go out of business, and other airlines are already buying up their planes and they're buying up their routes, and it's a disruption for a couple of weeks, and then we're fine.
Yeah, I think it happened in India also. Jet Airways came and went, but nobody missed them. And immediately, like you said, their aircrafts were bought by somebody and it goes on. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if there's a need in the marketplace, somebody's going to be there to fill it. If there's profit to be had, um, uh, somebody will be creative. But I tell audiences all the time, and I say, while we're sitting in this room, learning and sharing and growing our businesses, there are people meeting in rooms all over the world trying to think about how to do what you do differently or better or smarter or faster. That's why I think it's important that we go to our association conferences, because we need to get in the room together and learn from each other and say, what's the future? What do we need to start doing right now? We just can't be complacent in this world today, because there's a whole category of really brilliant disruptors out there who aren't just asking, all right, if how do we do this better? They're asking the question, is this how we should do it at all? If we were going to solve the problem today, would we do it this way? Right? If we solve our transportation, would we create the internal combustion engine? Probably not. And disruptors get to start from scratch and just cherry pick and create something new The legacy brands have to make the transition. And so once again, that's all the work that we do in helping businesses navigate that.
Yeah, very nice, very interesting. And I've also experienced going to different conferences and all. You get so much of absolutely authentic and practical sharing of knowledge, which doesn't happen anywhere else, whether it's in a book or it's in a movie or it's anywhere else, because that is so, it happens so transparently.
Yeah. Well, it's conversational, and
Yeah.
it's other people who have a stake in the industry as well. Uh, and it's other people who, I mean, it's so important that we're in the room having the conversation because you can get information, but it's pretty. What's the word if I get that right? A Oh, I can't remember what's the thing that one way communication. Like you ask a question, you get an answer. AI is great. Chat GPT is great. I mean, it basically knows everything that's ever been known. But what it doesn't have is the necessarily the nuance of context, right? That's the challenge. And we have like one of the reasons why I think people hate chatbots and some of those kind of things as well is because it lacks two things. One is cognizance. It doesn't always understand what we're really trying, especially if it's a complex issue. And the other one is it doesn't have the the authority or the agency to necessarily solve problems. It can deliver information, it can deliver responses. But if you're working with an organization, something is kind of an interesting or complex situation, you want it resolved. And that's something that chatbots and others can't do right now. Can answer a question, but it can't necessarily resolve an issue, or at least effectively.
Yeah, and not understanding what the context is can be so interesting. And I remember a joke that when Jet Airways I just spoke about, they had introduced this bot system, and they thought they were very smart and new to be able to answer questions. So there was one gentleman who was traveling from Mumbai to Bangalore, and when he reached there, he didn't find his baggage there, and the baggage had gone to Delhi, and it had to come, and he got it a day later. So he wrote in the customer service that thank you very much for the excellent experience. While I reached Bangalore, my baggage reached Delhi. And the answer was thank you very much. We hope you do continue to have experiences like this.
Yeah, right. Right. Well,
Oh,
it certainly doesn't understand sarcasm, right?
yeah.
Right. In person, you go, "Oh, great, thanks," and they go, "You're welcome." No,
Yeah.
doesn't understand. It will. It will. I mean, it is beyond brilliant. It is world transforming, uh, uh, but we have to navigate through it. And it's very simple to say, you got to make sure that don't forget the humanity. Well, what does that look like in practice? What does that
Yeah.
look like in terms of hiring or justifying the expense? I understand organizations trying to reduce the amount of calls that they get. Part of what I say is if you want to reduce the amount of calls, simplify your system so people don't have to call. Right. That's a
Absolutely.
big part of it. Move farther upstream. I'll tell you this one real quickly, and I know we're kind of short on time, but I had worked with this company and they had a very complex system and sort of navigate for their customers. And they had spent in US dollars $125,000 creating a series of training videos for their customers to walk them through how to do business with them and use their products. And they were very proud of all of this. And I stood back and I said, if you have to create training videos and spend all this money to teach your customers how to do business, I think we need to spend some of that money simplifying our process so we don't have to train our customers, right? And so anyway, there's a lot of ways to look at all of this, and it's always changing. Even for me, it's changing. I'm hired to speak at a number of international conferences. I leave in 30 minutes for the airport right now. I'm
Yeah,
in
I know.
London
I
next
know.
week. But here's the thing, but I'm booking events next year. And they're saying, can you give us a rundown of what you're going to talk about? I said, I can tell you, but it's going to change because it's a year away. And so my content will be updated and will be relevant and will be timely because we all have to be lifelong learners and continue to upgrade our skills.
Absolutely. So yes, we are conscious about your having to leave to the airport very soon, and this now shifts the. Sorry, I would do the other way around. Yeah. Yeah. So the focus now goes on to the audience. For a while, I want to quickly tell you that the hero today in this conversation is ridiculously easy to do business with. And you get a copy of this book if I see some good questions coming up. So let us see some good questions coming up. And as they come up, I would like to get back to David with another question. And that is about this book. And I want to know that in this book, of course, you have told us a couple of glimpses of that. But my question is, why do so many organizations unintentionally create friction for their customers? And what can leaders do to change that culture?
I'll answer it briefly, and I know my answers have been long today. It's that they forget to walk their customer's journey, and so they'll go through and they'll look at the internal process and organizational efficiencies, and they'll say, does it do what it's supposed to do? Can we simplify this? Even the engineers, they're saying, here's a process that we can create, we can make it work. And sometimes they fail to adequately look at the same problem from their customer's perspective. And so because it's hard, and it's not that they don't get it, and it's not that they don't care about what their customers, it's they're really focused on getting it right internally. And so even stress testing new products or systems or conversation or policies from the customer's perspective. Are we saying no too often? Are we being overly restrictive because we want them to do business our way? So I think that's the short answer. I think there's a problem with it sometimes because it's hard, it's complex, they get it solved, and then they deploy it without necessarily stress testing it from the customer's perspective. Not does it work, does it get them what they want, but is it a better alternative than what our competitors are doing? Not does it work for our customers, but do our customers prefer that? Right? Thinking about internal process. Did you click that? Did it work? Did it get there? Yeah, but did customers want that? Do they prefer it? Because we're all in competition with somebody.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what I feel is that in leadership too, principals can tolerate, people can tolerate pressure, but they struggle with unnecessary friction. And that's happening not only in customer experience, it's happening everywhere.
And the customers determine whether it's unnecessary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In most cases, see, I even put it in the book. Like I said, I'm a big fan of business. I'm a big fan of entrepreneurs and others as well. Nobody's trying to frustrate their customers. And from the business perspective, it's like, well, this is how you do it. I mean, this works really well. But that's the difference between customer service and customer experience. The customer experience is judged from the customer's perspective. And they're the ones who say, I don't think I didn't feel like that was necessary, right? We understand that a bank needs to validate our identity, right? That's friction, but it's necessary friction, right? They need to send you a code that you put in there. Unnecessary friction is making it really difficult to cancel a subscription, right? Because we do have to recognize that there is necessary friction. Sometimes we have to validate somebody's signing in as who they are, right? Banks and mortgage companies have to validate that you have sufficient income in order to qualify for a loan. It's friction. It's a problem. I mean, it's a challenge. It's frustrating, but it's necessary, right? We understand it. It's the stuff that's unnecessary. Saying no to dumb things get us frustrated sometimes.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. I think it was so nice. It was very nice having you and very kind of you to have accepted this invitation. And I know your travel schedule and what all you have been doing in the last couple of days. And now you're traveling to two places, one after the other. So with all that, you still accepted my invitation to come
Of course.
and be with our audience. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you very much. And I will personally, of course, love to be in touch with you because I'm learning a lot and waiting for my copy of Ridiculously Easy to Do Business With.
It was such a treat to meet you very recently in Singapore, and as you had said, had an extended conversation. But that's the joy of all of this. Travel's difficult, but it's worth it, right? Travel can be painful and exhausting, but the relationships are worth it, and the client work is worth it. So I appreciate the new connection and the new friction, the new friendship, and I appreciate being invited on. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much. Thank you for coming.